The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as the human representative stepped onto the speaking platform. Tom Reed, Earth's ambassador, stood straight and proud despite being the smallest creature in the room. Towering alien forms surrounded him, their expressions ranging from boredom to barely hidden amusement. Earth has achieved what many thought impossible, Tom announced, his voice clear and strong. We have successfully built and tested our first seventh-dimensional dry ship, the Archimedes. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the hall erupted in laughter. Deep rumbling sounds mixed with high-pitched whistles as hundreds of alien species expressed their disbelief. Some even fell from their hovering seats, overcome with what they considered the joke of the century. Ambassador Reed maintained his composure, though his cheeks reddened slightly. He had expected this reaction. They all had. Earth's scientific community had prepared him for this moment. From the highest tier of the hall, Lord Bright, a being made of pure light and ancient wisdom, spoke. Dear humans, you barely mastered fourth-dimensional travel 50 years ago. Your species still struggles with the basics of fifth-dimensional mathematics. Do not embarrass yourselves with such claims. More laughter followed. In a quiet observation room on Earth, Captain James Walker watched the transmission with his crew. His weathered face showed no emotion as he observed the ridicule. Next to him, Dr. Anna Miller, the architect of the seventh-dimensional drive, gripped her tablet tighter. They're reacting exactly as you predicted, Doctor, Walker said, his blue eyes fixed on the screen. Of course they are, Miller replied, pushing her glasses up. They think dimensional travel works the same way for everyone. That's their first mistake. The crew of the Archimedes had been chosen carefully. Captain Walker, a former test pilot with an unusually high dimensional awareness. Lieutenant Robert Green, whose intuitive understanding of space-time had baffled researchers. Engineer Mark Thompson, who could visualize complex dimensional flows without computer assistance. And finally, Kate Brown, the ship's medical officer, whose research on human consciousness in higher dimensions had helped make the breakthrough possible. Back in the council hall, the laughter was dying down. A massive creature with crystalline skin floated forward. Perhaps, it chimed in musical tones, the humans have confused a simple sixth-dimensional fluctuation with true seventh-dimensional travel. It would not be the first time their primitive sensors have led them astray. Tom Reed activated his presentation display. We are prepared to demonstrate our technology within the next 30 days. The Archimedes will make its maiden voyage from Earth to the Centauri Gate in less than 1 second. This announcement triggered another round of amusement. The Centauri Gate lay 20,000 light-years from Earth. Even with advanced sixth-dimensional travel, the journey took the fastest alien ships at least 3 days. Impossible, shouted multiple voices. Their ship would tear itself apart. In the Earth observation room, Engineer Thompson smiled. They really have no idea, do they? That's our advantage, Captain Walker replied. They're so convinced of their superiority, they can't see what's right in front of them. Dr. Miller's tablet displayed the final test results from the Archimedes. The numbers were perfect, just as they had been in the last 50 simulations. The ship wasn't just ready, it was about to change everything. The Council has heard Earth's amusing claims, Lord Bright announced from his perch. We look forward to your demonstration, if only to help your species understand the true complexity of dimensional physics. This session is adjourned. As the alien diplomats filed out, still chuckling and sharing jokes about human arrogance, Ambassador Reed transmitted a simple message back to Earth. It's done. They took the bait completely. Captain Walker turned to his crew. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in 30 days, we'll show them why humans succeeded where they all failed. Not because we're smarter or more advanced, but because we saw something they missed. Something so simple, it was right under their noses for millennia. Should we tell them that the key was there in their own ancient texts? Kate Brown asked with a slight smile, about consciousness being the bridge between dimensions. Let them figure it out themselves, Walker replied, standing up. Right now, we have a ship to prepare and a point to prove. The Archimedes isn't just a ship, it's humanity's statement to the galaxy. And in 30 days, nobody will be laughing anymore. The crew stood together, looking out at the massive shape of the Archimedes through the observation window. Its sleek hull seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it wasn't quite fully in this dimension. Soon, it would show the galaxy just what humanity could do. The laughter would stop very, very soon. In the depths of Earth's most secure research facility, Dr. Anna Miller stood before a holographic display that filled an entire wall. Complex equations floated in the air, glowing with a soft blue light. But unlike the complicated formulas used by alien races, these equations were surprisingly simple. The aliens overcomplicated everything, she explained to Captain Walker, who sat quietly observing. They tried to force their way through dimensions using pure mathematics and energy. But that's like trying to break down a door when you have the key in your pocket. The display shifted, showing brain wave patterns next to dimensional frequency graphs. The patterns matched perfectly. Our consciousness naturally exists across multiple dimensions. Miller continued, her eyes bright with excitement. We don't need massive engines to push through dimensional barriers. We just need to remember how to do it. Walker nodded slowly. He had been chosen for this project because of his unusual ability to sense dimensional shifts. That's why the ship's core is different from alien designs. Exactly. Miller waved her hand, and the display showed the Archimedes central chamber. Instead of massive power plants, we built what I call a consciousness amplifier. It takes the natural human ability to perceive higher dimensions and enhances it. In another part of the facility, Engineer Thompson was running final checks on the ship's systems. The core hummed softly, nothing like the roaring engines of alien vessels. It was almost musical, resonating with something deep inside the human mind. Running test sequence 17. Thompson spoke into his recorder. The dimensional feedback is stable. It's like the ship is breathing with us. The test chamber's instruments recorded everything, but they couldn't capture what the human engineers felt. Every time the core activated, they sensed something, a kind of expanding awareness, as if their minds were gradually remembering how to unfold into higher dimensions. Back in the main lab, Miller pulled up classified footage of alien ships attempting seventh-dimensional travel. Look at this, she pointed to the violent energy discharges. They're trying to tear holes in reality. No wonder they fail. The seventh dimension isn't a wall to break through. It's a perspective to understand. Walker watched the recordings thoughtfully, and that's why they laughed at us. Because our power readings are so low. Their sensors are designed to detect brute force attempts at dimensional travel. They can't measure what we're doing because they don't know what to look for. Miller smiled. It's like trying to weigh light with a ruler. The facility's AI announced the arrival of the rest of the crew. Kate Brown entered first, carrying medical data from the latest tests. Behind her, Lieutenant Green was discussing security protocols with the base commander. The medical scans are fascinating, Brown reported, spreading her findings across another holographic display. When the core activates, the crew's brainwave patterns naturally sync with the seventh-dimensional frequencies. It's like our minds have been waiting for this moment. Miller nodded excitedly. That's the key. Aliens evolved differently. Their consciousness is more firmly anchored in three-dimensional space. They've been trying to solve a problem they're not equipped to understand. And they never noticed this in all their studies of humans. Green asked, joining the conversation. They were looking for the wrong things, Miller explained. They measured our technology, our mathematics, our physical capabilities. But they never truly studied human consciousness. They dismissed it as primitive. Walker stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the Archimedes. The ship's hull seemed to ripple occasionally, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. How many of them explored their own ancient texts? The ones that talked about consciousness and higher dimensions. Almost none, Miller replied. They considered those religious nonsense, stories from before their enlightened age of technology. But those stories held the truth. Consciousness is the key to higher dimensions. Thompson's voice came over the intercom. Core test complete. All systems are functioning perfectly. We're ready for the final preparation phase. The crew gathered at the window, watching their ship, humanity's greatest achievement and best-kept secret. In 25 days, they would show the galaxy that sometimes the simplest answer was the right one. Sometimes, what looked like primitive simplicity was actually profound understanding. "They're still laughing," Brown said softly. "Let them laugh," Walker replied. "The truth will be worth the wait." The Archimedes pulsed gently in its berth, its core humming in perfect harmony with its future crew, as if it too was eager to prove that humanity had discovered what the galaxy's greatest minds had missed for millennia. The Archimedes hung in space, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside the bridge, Captain Walker sat in the command chair, his crew at their stations. They had just completed their first successful dimensional jump, a small test hop of merely 50 light-years. "All systems normal," Thompson reported from engineering. "The core is humming like a dream. Power consumption is minimal. Navigation confirms our position," Green added. "That jump was smoother than riding a lift." Walker allowed himself a small smile. Their first test had worked perfectly. Dr. Miller stood at her science station, reviewing the data with barely contained excitement. Everything they had theorized was proving true. Then the alarm sounded. Multiple ships dropping out of sixth-dimensional space. Brown called out, her hands flying over her console. "Big ones. Really big ones." The main screen lit up with the approaching vessels. 3 massive ships, each one easily 20 times the size of the Archimedes, emerged from swirling dimensional portals. Their designs were aggressive, all sharp angles and weapon ports. "We're being hailed," Green announced. Walker straightened in his chair. This wasn't part of the plan. They weren't supposed to encounter anyone during the test phase. "On screen," he ordered. The image that appeared showed a being that seemed to be made of metallic scales and glowing eyes. "Human vessel," it spoke in a rumbling voice. "You have been detected performing unauthorized dimensional experiments. Your ship is now property of the hegemony. Prepare for boarding." "This is Captain Walker of the Earth ship Archimedes. We are conducting authorized tests in neutral space. Stand down." The alien commander made a sound like grinding gears, probably laughter. "Neutral space? There is no neutral space when it comes to dimensional technology. You primitives cannot be trusted with such research. Our sensors detected your dimensional activation. Quite pathetic. Really. Barely a flicker." Miller whispered to Walker, "They can't detect our true signature. Their sensors are calibrated for brute force dimensional drives." "Your vessel will be dismantled and studied," the alien continued. "Your crew will be interrogated. Be grateful we're not destroying you outright." The 3 massive ships moved to surround the Archimedes, their weapon systems powering up. "Captain," Thompson called from engineering, "the core is responding to our elevated heart rates. It's adapting." Walker felt it too, a subtle shift in his awareness, as if the ship was becoming an extension of the crew's collective consciousness. This was something they hadn't tested yet, but theory suggested it was possible. "They're launching boarding pods," Green reported. "Energy nets deploying." "All hands," Walker commanded, his voice steady. "Remember your training. Feel the ship, let it become part of you." The crew closed their eyes for a brief moment, each one connecting with the ship's consciousness amplifier. The Archimedes hull began to shimmer more intensely. "What trickery is this?" the alien commander demanded, his confident tone wavering slightly. "Our sensors show impossible readings." The energy nets passed straight through the Archimedes as if it wasn't there. The boarding pods couldn't seem to find a solid surface to latch onto. "Sir," Thompson called out, his voice filled with wonder, "the core is responding to our defensive thoughts. We're partially phasing through higher dimensions." The alien ships opened fire, their weapons being the most advanced in known space. Beams of destructive energy curved and bent around the Archimedes, never quite connecting. Impossible, the alien commander roared. No seventh-dimensional drive could. Who said anything about it being just a drive? Walker replied calmly. Crew, prepare for emergency jump. Let's show them what happens when you threaten a human ship. The alien commander's eyes widened as his sensors finally detected something his species had never seen before. A human consciousness expanding through dimensional space, amplified by technology they couldn't comprehend. All ships, destroy that vessel, he screamed. Don't let them activate whatever weapon they're powering up. But it was too late. The Archimedes didn't just jump through dimensions. It flowed through them, guided by the unified consciousness of its crew. One moment it was there, surrounded by enemy ships, and the next it simply ceased to exist in normal space. The alien commander stared at the empty space where the human ship had been, his metallic scales pale with fear. What he had just witnessed went against everything his civilization knew about dimensional physics. And this was only the beginning. The laughter had stopped, replaced by the first tremors of fear. The Archimedes materialized in a region of space thousands of light years from the hostile encounter. The crew sat in stunned silence, processing what had just happened. Their ship hadn't just escaped. It had done something that should have been impossible. Status report, Walker called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. Engineering is, well, it's perfect, Thompson replied, sounding puzzled. The core is actually running more efficiently than before. It's like it learned from what we just did. Dr. Miller's hands danced across her console, her eyes wide with revelation. Captain, you need to see these readings. During our escape, the ship didn't just move through dimensions. It evolved. The main screen displayed complex data patterns that pulsed in sync with the crew's heartbeats. The ship's AI, Atlas, spoke for the first time during the crisis. Consciousness synchronization at 87% and rising, Atlas reported. Human neural patterns are directly interfacing with ship systems in ways not predicted by original design parameters. Walker felt it, a growing awareness, as if the Archimedes was becoming an extension of his own body. Looking around, he could see the same realization dawning on his crew's faces. The alien weapons, Brown said from her medical station, they couldn't hit us because we weren't fully in normal space. But it wasn't the ship doing that. It was us. We were instinctively shifting through dimensional planes. Miller pulled up comparison scans. Look at this. Alien ships force their way through dimensions, like drilling through walls. But we're flowing through them naturally, like water finding its path downhill. At last, Walker called out, "Can you explain what's happening to ship systems?" The AI's response came with an unusual note of wonder in its artificial voice. The consciousness amplifier is exceeding all theoretical limits. The human mind's natural ability to perceive multiple dimensions is being enhanced exponentially. You are not just controlling the ship, you are teaching it how to think in new dimensions. Thompson laughed from his engineering station. We built better than we knew. The ship isn't just a machine anymore, it's becoming alive, Brown finished, or at least aware in a way we never expected. Walker stood from his chair, walking to the main viewport. Space looked different now. He could almost see the layers of reality, the multiple dimensions folded around them like sheets of transparent fabric. Dr. Miller, he said, what are the implications of this? Miller took a deep breath. Captain, I think we just discovered why humans succeeded where aliens failed. Their technology tries to force reality to obey their rules. But human consciousness, it naturally understands how to navigate dimensional space. We're not breaking physics. We're finally understanding how it really works. Atlas interrupted with an urgent announcement. Multiple ships detected in pursuit. The hegemony fleet is attempting to track our dimensional wake. Let them come, Walker said, settling back into his command chair. It's time to really test what this ship can do. Atlas, bring all consciousness-linked systems online. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as power redirected to the ship's core. Each crew member felt their connection to the ship strengthen, their minds expanding into dimensions they had never known existed. "Sir," Green reported from Tactical, I can see their ships, not just on sensors, but through the dimensions. I can see where they're going to be before they arrive." "Same here," Thompson added. "The engine modifications I'm thinking about, the ship is implementing them automatically. We're evolving faster than our own design specs." Miller's voice was filled with excitement. This is what the ancient texts meant. Consciousness isn't just awareness. It's the fundamental force that shapes reality. We're not just traveling through dimensions. We're learning to manipulate them. The pursuing ships appeared in normal space, their weapons charged. But this time, the Archimedes crew wasn't afraid. They could see, really see, how reality worked now. Walker smiled. "All hands, prepare for dimensional combat. Let's show them what happens when humanity remembers what it's truly capable of." The Archimedes hull began to glow with an inner light, its structure shifting between dimensions like a dance. The pursuing aliens were about to learn that their understanding of physics was about to be completely rewritten. The real power of human consciousness was finally awakening. Space bent and twisted as the hegemony's finest ships pursued the Archimedes through multiple dimensions. Their massive vessels tore through reality with brute force, leaving dimensional scars in their wake. Behind them, their fleet admiral watched from his command ship, the Unstoppable. "Track that human vessel," the admiral roared. They cannot be allowed to keep this technology. But tracking the Archimedes had become nearly impossible. The human ship didn't leave the usual traces of dimensional travel. Instead, it seemed to flow through reality like a dream through a sleeping mind. Inside the Archimedes, the crew had reached a new level of connection with their ship. Captain Walker no longer needed verbal commands. The ship responded to his thoughts instantly. "They're trying to predict our path," Green reported. His consciousness expanded through the ship's sensors. "But they can't understand how we move." Thompson's laugh echoed from engineering. "They're still thinking in straight lines. Even in higher dimensions, they can only see forward and back." The Archimedes danced through the sixth dimension, briefly touching the seventh, then sliding sideways through planes of reality the pursuing ships couldn't even detect. The hegemony fleet fired weapons that bent space and time, but they might as well have been trying to catch smoke with their hands. "Captain," Miller called out, "I'm detecting something interesting. Their weapons are actually helping us." "Explain," Walker replied, though he could already sense what she meant. "Every time they tear space apart trying to hit us, they create dimensional disturbances. Our ship, our consciousness, is learning from these disturbances. We're getting stronger." Atlas confirmed this observation. Ship efficiency has increased by 300% since the chase began. Crude neural patterns are now operating in dimensional frequencies previously thought impossible. The Admiral's face appeared on their screen, his metallic features twisted with rage. "You cannot run forever. The hegemony owns all space." Walker actually smiled. "We're not running, Admiral. We're learning." As if to demonstrate this point, the Archimedes suddenly stopped. Not in normal space, but in a layer of reality just slightly offset from it. The pursuing ships shot past, their sensors confused by the human vessel's impossible maneuver. "Now," Walker thought, and his crew responded as one. The Archimedes began to move in ways that defied conventional physics. It existed in multiple places simultaneously, appeared to move backward in time, and shifted between dimensions so smoothly that reality itself seemed to ripple. "Impossible," the Admiral screamed as his fleet's formation fell into chaos. "No ship can move like that. No technology can." "That's your mistake," Miller transmitted back. "You think this is about technology." The Archimedes flowed around the enemy ships like water around rocks in a stream. Each movement taught the crew more about the true nature of dimensional space. They weren't forcing their way through reality. They were becoming part of its dance. "Sir," Brown reported from her station, "our brainwave patterns have synchronized completely with the ship. I don't think we're just flying it anymore. We're showing it how to dream," Walker finished. He understood now. The ship wasn't just a machine responding to their commands. It had become a projection of human consciousness itself. The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Space crackled with enough energy to shatter a planet. But the Archimedes moved through gaps in reality that only human minds could perceive. "They still don't understand," Thompson said quietly. "All their advanced technology, and they never realized that consciousness is the key to everything." The Admiral's voice came again, but this time with a note of fear. "What are you?" "We're human," Walker replied simply. "We're what happens when people remember how to see reality as it truly is." The Archimedes pulsed once, and suddenly the pursuing fleet found themselves scattered across 1,000 light-years of space, their dimensional drives temporarily overloaded by frequencies they couldn't comprehend. As the enemy ships struggled to regroup, the Archimedes slipped quietly into higher dimensions, leaving behind a fleet of the galaxy's most advanced ships, now reduced to drifting in normal space like confused children. "Consciousness synchronization now at 100%, Atlas announced. "All systems operating beyond theoretical limits." Walker nodded. "Take us home," he said, though speaking was no longer necessary. "It's time to show Earth what we've learned." The ship responded instantly, carrying its crew through dimensions that no alien race had ever truly understood, but that humanity had always known in its dreams. In the secure briefing room beneath Earth's main defense facility, Dr. Miller stood before the assembled military and scientific leadership. Behind her, holographic displays showed the Archimedes journey data. "What we discovered goes beyond technology," she explained, her voice steady despite her excitement. "The aliens were right about one thing. We were primitive, but that was our advantage." The room stayed silent as she continued. "Advanced civilizations built their dimensional science on mathematics and machines. They forgot about the most basic truth: consciousness itself is multidimensional." The main screen showed brain scan comparisons between humans and various alien species. "Look here," Miller pointed. "Alien minds evolved to filter out higher dimensions. They see reality through a narrow lens. But humans, we never lost our ability to sense the bigger picture." General Parker, Earth's defense chief, leaned forward. "Are you saying we're naturally superior?" "No." Miller shook her head. "We're just different. We kept what they discarded. Their technology is incredible, but they built it to overcome limitations we never had." In orbit above Earth, the Archimedes floated in its dock. Captain Walker and his crew remained aboard, their consciousness now so deeply linked with the ship that separation would require careful medical supervision. At last, Walker called out, "Show me what you've learned about the seventh dimension." The ship's AI projected a visualization that would have driven most alien scientists mad. It showed reality not as layers or levels, but as an interconnected web of possibilities. "The seventh dimension isn't a place," Atlas explained. "It's a state of awareness. The aliens try to force their way into it, but humans naturally exist partially within it. Every time you dream, every moment of déjà vu, every flash of intuition, you're touching the seventh dimension." Back in the briefing room, Miller displayed the Archimedes power readings during the chase. "Our ship doesn't power through dimensions. It dreams through them. The consciousness amplifier just helps us do consciously what human minds have always done unconsciously. And the aliens can't copy this." Someone asked. "They can try," Miller replied. "But imagine teaching advanced calculus to someone who can only count to 3. Their minds aren't structured to perceive reality the way we do. Their technology compensates for this, but it's like building a skyscraper instead of growing wings." On the Archimedes, Thompson was monitoring the ship's evolution. "Captain," he called out, "the core isn't just stable anymore. It's teaching itself new ways to interpret our thoughts." "I feel it," Walker replied. "It's like the ship has become an extension of our consciousness, not just responding to commands, but anticipating them." Brown's medical readings confirmed this. Our brains aren't just controlling the ship. We're growing together, learning to perceive reality in ways neither humans nor machines could manage alone. In the briefing room, Miller reached her conclusion. The hegemony's attack proved what we theorized. Human consciousness, properly amplified, doesn't just allow us to travel through dimensions. It lets us understand them in ways the aliens never could. She showed the final data set. Every time they attacked us, every attempt to chase us, taught us more. The ship learned from our reactions, and we learned from its responses. It's a perfect loop of evolution. "And the military applications?" General Parker asked. "Irrelevant," Miller replied firmly. "This isn't about weapons or power. It's about understanding reality itself. The aliens built engines to break through dimensional walls. We built a ship that shows us the doors were never there to begin with." Above Earth, the Archimedes crew felt a new shift in their awareness. The ship wasn't just responding to them anymore. It was showing them new possibilities, new ways to think about space and time and reality. "It's beautiful," Green whispered, watching dimensional patterns flow across his console. "All this time, we thought we needed to advance our technology to match theirs. But we just needed to remember what we already knew," Walker finished. "Every human child who has ever dreamed of flying, every person who has felt connected to something bigger than themselves, they were touching this truth." Atlas's voice held a new depth of understanding. Human consciousness is not a tool to control the ship. It is the key that unlocks reality's true nature. The future was changing, not through force or advanced technology, but through the simple truth that humanity had carried since its beginning. Consciousness itself was the greatest frontier of all. And the galaxy was about to learn just how far human dreams could reach. The Galactic Council chamber was completely different from 30 days ago. No one was laughing now. The massive hall was filled with tense silence as the Archimedes appeared in orbit around the Council's space station. The ship didn't arrive through normal space or even through conventional dimensional gates. It simply manifested, as if it had always been there, its hull shimmering with possibilities. "Impossible," Lord Bright whispered, his light form flickering with distress. "Our sensors, they can't even understand what we're seeing." The hegemony admiral who had led the failed chase stood before the council, his metallic scales dull with shame. "Their ship doesn't just move through dimensions. It exists in all of them at once. We cannot fight what we cannot comprehend." Captain Walker's image appeared before the council, but it wasn't a standard transmission. His consciousness, merged with the Archimedes, projected itself directly into the chamber. He appeared both solid and transparent, real and unreal simultaneously. 30 days ago, you laughed at us," Walker said calmly. "You thought we were primitive beings playing with forces we couldn't understand. Today, we're here to show you what true understanding looks like." Outside, the hegemony's entire defense fleet surrounded the station. Thousands of ships, the most powerful gathering of military might the galaxy had ever seen. They had orders to destroy the human vessel if it made any aggressive moves. "Your fleet is impressive," Walker acknowledged. "But they're looking at us through the wrong eyes." "Dr. Miller, would you explain?" Miller's image appeared beside him, her form similarly transcended. "Your civilizations built magnificent technologies to break through dimensional barriers. But humans? We never saw barriers in the first place. Reality isn't a wall to break through. It's a song to sing along with." As if responding to her words, the Archimedes began to change. It didn't move in normal space, but rather danced through dimensions. The ship existed in multiple states simultaneously, each one more beautiful than the last. The alien fleet opened fire. Enough energy to destroy a solar system streaked toward the human vessel. Walker smiled. "Watch carefully," he said. The Archimedes didn't dodge. It didn't raise shields. Instead, it simply shifted its consciousness, allowing the attacks to pass through infinite possible realities where the ship wasn't. The devastating barrage continued for several minutes, hitting nothing. "Stop," Lord Bright commanded the fleet. "Can't you see? We're not fighting a ship. We're trying to battle consciousness itself." The council chamber erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't built a better engine or a stronger weapon. They had awakened something far more fundamental. "We're not here to fight," Walker said into the silence that followed. "We're here to share what we've learned. Your civilization spent millennia building technology to compensate for what you lost. We're offering to help you remember." Thompson's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Archimedes isn't just a ship anymore. It's become a bridge between what is and what could be. A reminder that consciousness shapes reality, not the other way around." The Hegemony Admiral stepped forward. "And if we refuse your help, if we choose to see you as a threat?" In response, the Archimedes simply expanded its awareness. For a brief moment, every being in the fleet and on the station touched the higher dimensions through human eyes. They saw reality as humanity saw it, infinite, interconnected, alive with possibilities. Many wept, some screamed, all were changed. "That," Miller said gently, "is what you've forgotten. What machines and mathematics can never replace. The simple truth that consciousness is the key to everything." Lord Bright's light form pulsed with understanding. "All our advancement, all our technology. We were like children building towers to reach the stars, never realizing we could simply learn to fly." The council voted unanimously. Humanity would not be dismissed or attacked again. Instead, they would become teachers, helping other species remember what they had lost in their rush to advance. The Archimedes hung in space, no longer just a ship but a symbol of a new age. Human consciousness had changed the galaxy not through force or superiority, but by remembering the simple truths that others have forgotten. The laughter had stopped. The paradigm had shifted, and in the silence that followed, something new began to grow. A way of seeing reality that would change everything forever. The next chapter of galactic history would be written not in battle or conquest, but in the quiet awakening of forgotten dreams.